Hello! Please feel free to watch this video any number of times or pause it so that you can take notes. Today we're going to be talking about finding and estimating square roots of numbers. And in order to find the square root of a number and estimate that, we need to first talk about perfect squares. Now, on your investigation you should have already defined perfect squares, but just so you know, a perfect square is a number that is the product of some integer and itself, meaning that a perfect square is a whole number, like let's say 7, multiplied by itself, 7. So 7 times 7 is 49. That means that 49 is an example of a perfect square. Now there are lots of perfect squares out there because there are lots of numbers that you can take and multiply by itself. Let's take a minute and list off the perfect squares that we know. In order to find the perfect squares that we know, I would just take, starting at 1, multiply 1 by itself, and then see what you get. Well, 1 times 1 is 1, so a perfect square is 1. What's 2 times 2? 4. So an example of a perfect square is 4. Another perfect square is 3 times 3, which is 9. 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 5 is 25. 6 times 6 is 36. 7 times 7, we did that, that's 49. 8 times 8 is 64. 9 times 9 is 81. 10 times 10 is 100. 11 times 11 is 121. 12 times 12 is 144. 13 times 13 is 169. And we could keep going, but they go on for a long time. Therefore, these are examples of perfect squares. Now, a square root is an operation that undoes the square function. So, for example, if I were to take the square root of 9, the square root of 9 says, well, it finds the number that when we squared it, we got 9. Well, that number is 3. The square root of 9 is 3. Another example, the square root of 36 is 6. Now, there are some numbers whose answer, when you take the square root, is not a whole number answer. And those are called irrational numbers. So, for example, if we were to take the square root of 12, the square root of 12 is 3.464101615, and it just keeps going on and on. This is called an irrational number. And an irrational number is irrational because it's got this decimal that doesn't end, but it's not a repeating decimal, like 0.3 repeating. So this is irrational. Now, our goal is to estimate square roots. So we can estimate the square roots here. Let's do these examples. When we estimate the square root of something, like for example, if we wanted to estimate the square root of 7, the first thing that we're going to do is find 2 consecutive perfect squares that 7 is between. Well, in this case 7 is in between the perfect square of 4 and the perfect square of 9. So that means that the square root of 7 is going to be in between the square root of 4 and the square root of 9. The square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 9 is 3. So that means the square root of 7 is in between 2 and 3. And it's probably closer to 3 because 7 is closer to 9 than it is to 4. So the square root of 7 is between 2 and 3. Let's estimate what two numbers the square root of 24 is between. Well, the square root of 24 is between the two perfect squares of 16 and 25. 16 is 4 squared, 25 is 5 squared, so 24 lies in between 16 and 25. Therefore, if I take the square root of 16 and the square root of 25, well, the square root of 16 is 4, the square root of 25 is 5. That means that the square root of 24 is somewhere in between 4 and 5. Now, since 24 is very close to 25, that means that the square root of 24 is going to be approximately, well, very close to 5, but not exactly. So like 4.9. And if you were to type it exactly in your calculator, the square root of 24 is 4.8989, and it keeps going. So that rounds to 4.9. We're really close. That means that the square root of 24 is between 4 and 5. The square root of 95, let's try that one. 95 is in between what two perfect squares? That's right, 81 and 100. So that means that the square root of 95 is between, well, the square root of 81 is 9, and the square root of 100 is 10. Therefore, the square root of 95 is between 9 and 10. Please feel free to watch this video again so that you can understand better. Thank you.